NetStarzLive wants to give a special shout out to all our new subscribers and supporters for getting us to that 1K mark. Is Hassan Campbell on to something? NetStars, doing homework, has dug into a lot of things and find some corroborating things that Hassan been speaking on. Check it out.
I want to be one of the old people that's miserable and hate at the end of their life. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, mad at the world, jealousy. There's a lot of old niggas mad at niggas till they you grew up around these niggas wondering why they was so spiteful towards them. Like, you ain't my age. Threatened by the potential opportunity. I'll be so scared for these niggas trick to work on me. Just go sit, so that's my main motivation. I don't even want y'all trick to work.
That was a statement made by Nipsey shortly before his untimely death. A lot of speculation into that statement. As we know, the act carried out by a Crip member associated with his gang, Eric Holder. A lot of speculation as to why Eric Holder did that. It was said that Eric Holder was asked to leave the premises of the property where Nipsey's store was located, and Eric did return, and he murdered Nipsey Hussle. As he lay dying there, he was shot at least 10 times, according to Deputy District Attorney John McKenna, and he told the court that the double-up rapper, 33, turned to Holder, 29, and allegedly told him, "You got me." Looking back in hindsight now, it's just cryptic that if you read into the wordage of Nipsey's last statement, he said, "You got me." Have you scratching your head? I mean, I'm just trying to understand, is that like a message within itself, okay? We all know that him and Big U was beefing, that they had parted ways, and that Nipsey was becoming very successful within that move. The Marathon store was taking off. He was negotiating deals with the community and law enforcement, trying to bring about a better understanding and cooperation with them, so that the area could remain with the people, and that it would be able and entitle the community to maintain the property, which was in the midst of being regentrified. Okay, a lot of different things going on all levels here, as far as the situation pertaining to that property. Big U was definitely out the loop as far as any of this was concerned, and I'm quite sure he was feeling quite salty about it. If you look at a lot of earlier recordings and interviews with Big U, he was taking credit for a lot of Nipsey's success. He was going on to say that not only was he the reason why he was successful, but it was essentially his life and the gang style of life that Nipsey was incorporating into his music movement. Thus, he felt like, on top of that being his manager, that he definitely had something coming. Now, there's a whole lot more to this. Like I said, there was the initial conflict between Big U, Nipsey Hussle, his brother Sam, and even his father. There was an altercation to the extent where Big U had beat up Nipsey, had beat up Sam, and was beating on his father, and Sam brandished a firearm and shot it into the air, which led to the police coming to the scene and making their presence known, firing shots at Sam, not hitting him, but that was the end of that confrontation. All were arrested, but there were no charges filed. It was kept within their ranks. With the separation between Nipsey and Big U of higher ranking status with the Rolling 60s, the division worked more into Nipsey's favor. His stature led him to having many sit downs with the city councils, mayors, and other politicians in the field to bring some sort of community awareness and having the opportunity to have a sit down with all of the regional gangs to see if there could be some sort of accord that will work out for everybody involved. The community was undergoing transition. They were getting ready for, up until this point, they were getting ready to start moving out the old inhabitants of the neighborhood, which is something that Nipsey and his family and company were working hard to not let happen. Also, with the gentrification, they realized that there were some new developments in the area of the light rails coming in and whatnot, and making it more accessible to a lot of people and bringing the property value up. Yes, this was a multi-million dollar improvement for anybody that held any properties in these areas, and that essentially along with any businesses that were going to be taken in hand. Throughout the whole process, Big U was becoming more and more out of reach with any of these types of sit downs and whatnot. And Big U, who was striving to become more and more legitimate and using the gang, having already filed a LLC for Crips Incorporated, he was very much sitting in the outside looking in. This disgruntled him, and this was well known knowledge throughout the Crip organization. The division had been staked, and people were looking at what they had to lose and what they had to gain. So I would say right about this time there was a lot of innuendo stated by each party, and one of the things being that, and this is just an assertion by a few people, also myself, that in the sit downs that Nipsey was having with the politicians and whatnot, the label of him being a snitch was asserted. This is something that's not very common knowledge to a lot of people. This is just something, me looking at the table and looking at the chessboard and saying, what would be the next best move for opposition to try to discredit him and unseat him in this political realm, along with the street cred. He was having these talks, and anybody who has had any dealings with the streets would know that anytime you sit down for any prolonged amount of times with policing sanctions or legal sanctions, you could very well be considered or labeled that, unless you had something to prove yourself. In other words, if you had any kind of documentation stating that that was not the case, in this case being the reverse of people having documentation stating that you were a snitch. When you're hearing it from people who have a lot of authority in these elements as far as street cred and whatnot, sometimes that's taken as being golden or gospel or 100. And I believe that he may have ran into some of this. So history would dictate that during an investigation brought down by the Los Angeles Police Department and the Las Vegas Police Department, earlier investigations have brought forth that another blood gang member with significant ties to the industry as far as entertainment concerned, Suge Knight, was investigated and being brought up potential charges of activities including money laundering and scheme to tax out-of-state rappers and athletes such as much as 30,000 just to work in Los Angeles and Las Vegas. A source in the music industry, allegedly told investigators the extortion plot is jointly run by rival gangs, the Bloods and the Crips, according to a motion filed in court. Now, this person who is significant in the music industry has yet to be named. Also, it has never been named. I'm assuming that it's probably a sealed piece of evidence. But people who play the chessboard, the hustle game, the street life, and whatnot, can probably put pieces together. And I'm assuming that the people that put the pieces together were people that were looking at to have big gains in what was transpiring in the landscape of the Crenshaw area. These people, Big U, seeing himself losing out on all stakes about what was about to transpire in the development of the area with the incoming light rail and all that, thought heavily on what his position could have been and what it was. And at such time being in point, probably assessed, and this is just from my own analogy, this, don't stamp this is just an opinion, that at this point he felt like probably the only person who was in there communicating with authorities to this extent could possibly be Nipsey and his associates. As it was, Nipsey continued with his talks, but the day before the meeting that he was to have with the authorities to put a stamp on development of the plans, the truth between the gangs, and community uplifting and whatnot, revision of what was to transpire within the development, Nipsey was assassinated. With that being said, during such time, we also known that Suge Knight was at that point just before then, he was in prison on other charges relating to his activities in the streets and whatnot. And those charges were still foregoing as far as what he was to actually be facing when it came to terms of the extortion and whatnot. So, Suge Knight has an associate back then. Somebody that was known to be like his his right hand man, somebody that rode with him on many occasions. In fact, drove him on these occasions to handle whatever type of business that they had to do. And at this point, we see the introduction of Wack 100. So, like as in the days of the old gangsters and the old hustlers, when the big guy went down, usually it was somebody close, would pick up the blueprint and implement it and take it to the next level if possible. And with the old Dons, per se, blessings, would carry on the business of the enterprise. So the insertion still remained that potentially Wack 100 and Big U were still involved in the extortion and squeezing of artists and entertainers and people performing in Los Angeles area and Las Vegas up until this day. So with that being said, it's safe to say that what has brought light to all of this is the fact that Wack 100 got to feeling himself, got to feeling a kind of way, and got to talking a little bit too much to somebody who definitely is on the mission. He has things to prove. He's trying to right the community. How definitely when it comes to our young melanated men, and that's going to be a battle within itself. But as you can see, the powers that be and the entities that surround these type of movements can be very, very dangerous. And as we speak, Hassan Campbell really probably knows this. If they could take a man like Nipsey out, they dang sure could take a man like Hassan out. And he is very much on guard. And he is definitely, as he says, watching his circle and making sure that he stays with his head on a swivel, 360, and definitely looking to protect his family. So it's a dangerous game. Like I said, cards still shoveling, cards still falling, and where it's gonna go is like I said, there's only three really real outcomes. I call them the three F's, not the FBI, not those letter combinations, but the three F's, as in federal, financial, and fatality. And right now, this is a very, very crucial situation. We're talking about some old time dudes who have been extorting for quite a long time, potentially, allegedly, who have built their empires off of this, and probably definitely had plans of generational wealth being passed down to their family members and the next members of their organizations to step up and continue with this. One thing we do know, that this type of business, this type of enterprise has been going on in Hollywood for a very, very, very long time, not just with the gang members. For a lot of factions, such as the mob and everything else, the influence of it has go back for a very long time, even back to the days where Vegas was just being built by the mob. So we know that this is nothing new. With that being said, NetStars, thank you for viewing in on this episode. And please be sure to follow us on our Facebook group, NetStarzLive Urban, where we are topping up at 21,000. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.